Is it going to come tomorrow? Is it going to come next week? No, the time for justice, the time for freedom, and the time for equality is always right now.
You're listening to another Perspective Talk Show.
Hello. This is Sam, a.k.a. Lucy Bones.
This show is brought to you by Rebirth Radio.
Something said, something done within the community feeds into the stereotype, feeds into the prejudice.
Shadow. Radio.
I think more community involvement could be beneficial in teaching people about budgeting, income, and how to save, and multiple streams of income. And
you're listening to another Perspective Talk Show.
Hello. This is Sam, a.k.a. Lucy Bones. I am coming to you with an alternative perspective. With Rebirth Radio. I am coming to you with a series on emotional abuse and narcissism. In part one, I gave origins and my story. Just to recap, I have a traumatic past. I have trauma in my childhood, which made me an easy target because all that trauma set me up with a perception and a personality that allowed me to miss certain flags or overlook them for the benefit of the good of all. And my story, of course, involves revenge porn, slander, identity theft, continued abuse and harassment, and stalking online, gaslighting, and a number of other features by an ex of mine whom I happened to share a child with, and who the courts lack an ability to adequately handle a parent who's done this to another parent, a parent who's a narcissist, and a parent who engages in this type of behavior. So for lack of better understanding on how to handle a situation like this, they go for the standard, which is joint custody. I do have primary residence with my child, and it looks like custody may change in the future if certain behaviors are continued. So part two is damages. Now, 6 years of ongoing harassment, abuse, gaslighting, more than 52 websites, all of these things happening over a 6-year period, and there are severe damages that I endured. This is not my birth name. I did have to go through an identity change because the damages were so severe that it started impacting my ability to continue working in places of employment where I've already secured a position. And it forced places to reconsider my position with them, not because of my work performance or my behaviors, not because of any background information, simply because a Google search showed a lot of inappropriate content that I did not post. I did not choose to post. It was private in a loving, trusting relationship that I was in for a period of 6 years, which is interesting. I was in the relationship for 6 years, and this abuse has been going on just as long. It is very taxing. The stress of the relationship combined with other factors, plus the stress of what's been going on over the last 6 years, caused my hormonal system to go haywire, start feeding a tumor in my breast. I wound up with stage 3A breast cancer. Stress played a big role. I tested negative to 19 different genetic factors. I ate healthy, I exercised, I breastfed all my kids. I had 4 kids. I breastfed all of them. I was not overweight. I had a healthy lifestyle, except for stress. And so I believe that it was a component, and it was not the sole cause, but it was a big component of my development of cancer. So I would go out for other jobs and apply for jobs, and some companies Google you to see if you have the same vision and morals and values that the company holds, and others just want to be safe, because if you're interacting with clients, either children, adolescents, adults who might be vulnerable, who may have disabilities or various diagnoses, they want to be safe rather than sorry. They want to ensure that their employees are not exhibiting behaviors that might jeopardize the safety and welfare of those in their care. And they want to make sure that people are who they say they are, as well as a number of other things. Plus, there are times when clients or clients' family and friends, they hear somebody talking about their provider and might try to look them up to try to see, okay, who is this person that's taking care of my loved one? So in my situation, because I hadn't changed my name yet, people were able to Google me and try to find information on me, but the information they were finding was concerning. It wasn't information that was true, and it wasn't information that I authorized or put out. It was, in fact, information that I had several orders for protection on. I got an initial order for protection in July 1st, 2013. I had court, so it was awarded in August, but I filed in July. And then I had a modification done in 2015. And then in 2017, I had a 1-year extension on that. And due to attorney recommendations on potentially improving the co-parenting relationship and creating less hostility for my child, I agreed to forego an additional order for protection. And in place of that, I received a protective order embedded in my family court case, which is permanent, all-time, long-time, forever and ever, which, of course, the narcissist does not respect, because the narcissist believes that any orders or judgments or any sanctions are only one-directional and does not pertain to them, even though they are mentioned. They're just mentioned because, which is interesting to watch that mindset play out. So jobs, of course, a job was very difficult for me under my former name. And eventually it got to the point where I was financially distraught. And I couldn't find any assistance to help me with rent, because there was no guarantee with the situation I was in that my situation would improve the following month. My situation was going to take time to get out of, which included having to change my name. So I became homeless, and I have a daughter shared with the narcissist. And it's not like I could say, hey, I'm in a situation that you created, by the way. I'm in a situation, and I need your help. Could you take care of our daughter? He would take that as an opportunity as, oh, you're unfit. You're proving it to me. You're abandoning her, and here you go. I'm going to take complete custody of her. We'll say that it's temporary, but really I'm not giving her back. Because there's no way I can be sure that everything is suitable to what I believe it should be. And that's just not okay by me. So instead of going that route and working with him, I decided that I would call child protection, the court systems, and I would make sure that camping during the entire camping season is not only appropriate but not abuse, not neglect, not harmful in any way, and that it carries no legal ramifications for me. And in 2 states, in 2 legal entities, 2 child protective statuses, as long as it's camping season and the campgrounds are open, as long as there's heat and running water and electricity, and as long as I'm able to have her do her homework, get her to school, and feed her, etc., care for her basic needs, there's nothing wrong with it. So that's what we did. We camped for a while. And I was able to get connected to resources then and got involved with the HUD program. As soon as I got housed, as soon as I got into this program, right before I signed my lease, I found out I had stage 3A breast cancer. And so, and also during this time, I should say, I went through my identity change. I petitioned the court. I reversed the eviction because I was able to prove that it was due to abuse and domestic violence and violations of the order for protection. I also was able to prove that this individual had been charged on 2 counts of violating the order for protection, and he received a year, no same or similar. And, you know, currently he's under investigation for potentially violating. We know that he actually did it. We have the evidence that he did it, but it's up to the prosecutor what they're going to do with it. They might let it go. They might do something. You know, we're not sure. In any case, this is just unbelievable. When I hear myself tell this, it's unbelievable. And I can understand why there are certain people in my past who are like, oh, I'm not going to call you this new name. I'm not going to deal with the double identity. I'm not going to deal with this bullshit. I don't believe it. Because it's hard to believe. It's absolutely hard to believe. Unless you go through it yourself, I mean, you can't even imagine someone doing this to someone else. So I have to laugh a little bit at the irony of it all. That's exactly what gaslighting does, doesn't it? It sets an image, a public image of an individual, and it's not the image you want. It's not a true image, but it is an image nonetheless that the individual, the narcissist, wants others to think of you. So the narcissist can feed off of your reaction and others' reaction to the gaslit image they're projecting, because that's how they feed their ego. Oh, poor you, you're the victim. Oh, poor you, you endured so much. Oh, so sad. Oh, she's a horrible person. And that just boosts the narcissist, right? So I was able to get housed, but for 2 years, I haven't been able to work. I haven't been able to earn an income. So I was able to change all these things, but I wasn't able to do anything with them. And by the way, changing my identity, I had to start, and I got cancer at 38. Well, I was diagnosed at 38. My tumor was 9 centimeters by 3 centimeters, and I had involvement in the lymph nodes. 4 out of 7 lymph nodes were involved. I'm beside myself because I'm on the verge of tears as I recall these events. So I had the cancer, I had the diagnosis, and I couldn't bring in the majority of my work experiences. I had to completely change my educational endeavors. I had to change my degree, and I was doing very, very well in my field. Very well. I had a professor from Purdue who said, who also taught at my college, and said that I was a rising star and that I would be a major contributor to the field, and that I am extremely intelligent and I have an aptitude for what I was going into. And that was broken. It was taken away. I was robbed of that opportunity because of the things the narcissist did. So, education, employment, I had to let it all go. And at 38, well, technically 40, because, 38 is when I was diagnosed, and it took 2 years of chemotherapy and radiation and surgeries and sepsis and hospitalizations and another surgery and yet another surgery before I could really get back on my feet and reset my life. As I reset it, I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I have to start all over at 40. I have to rebuild my reputation in the field I want to be in. I have to figure out a way to show that I've had experiences that pertain to my master's degree, which I did obtain during chemotherapy and radiation. I pushed through. It was one of the small things I was actually able to do between chemo infusions and radiation appointments. I had radiation every day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks. I had third-degree burns. I was in pain. I was septic. I had an infection, fever, heart rate over 120. And all the while I'm going through court with my narcissist. Court, school, cancer, and my narcissist says to a guardian ad litem and to a custody evaluator. My narcissist says, I don't believe she even has cancer. If she does, she's milking it for all it's worth. I know people who have had cancer, and it's not that bad. Well, let me tell you, I now have, because of the way the chemo medications worked on my body, and there's not a whole lot of studies done with chemotherapy neurologically, and then medications and the long-term neurological damage from chemotherapy. Actually, there's relatively no studies from that. They just assume everything regenerates and it's fine. I have a pain disorder, fibromyalgia, lymphedema. One of my hips is rotated inward. I have lost strength. I have lost some coordination. I have a lot of health issues. I get vertigo. My eyesight changed. I have an aortic aneurysm as a result of all the trauma to my body. I have issues. I do. And I still press on. I still parent. I still go to my kids' school for conferences. But the damages are very, very devastating. They're very real. And I'm terrified. When people who knew me as my former identity call me my both names, I freak out. I get scared because I'm like, okay, who's listening? Who might learn my true identity and what might they do with that? Or, what if my child's school decided to Google me for some reason and finds all this stuff, these videos and these websites and these things that are up against me? I'd be devastated, embarrassed, ashamed. And at the same time, I don't want to feel shame because I didn't do this to myself. I didn't ask for this. I was in a loving, trusting relationship, and I should have been able to share anything with this individual, and it should have been kept in confidence, just like this individual shared so many things with me, and I kept the things that they've shared with me in confidence. Even through the breakup, even though we're not together, I have kept it. I haven't gone public. I could have destroyed this individual's life. But instead, I pray for them every day, and I wish them well, and I hope that they find peace somewhere. I hope that they realize that they're very, very ill and they seek help. But the problem with narcissists is that they don't think they are the problem. They don't think anything's wrong with them. They're fine. And anything that they take ownership of, such as their children, everything's fine. It's the other person. It's everyone else around them that's not fine. They're the only one that's fine. They're the only one that's sane. They're the only one that's doing the right thing. And everyone else around them is family. Everyone else around them is the problem. Everyone else around them is not fine or causing something or doing something to them. It is incredibly taxing and frustrating because this isn't going to end. My kiddo, we have 7 more years, well, maybe 6.5 if you want to really get technical, of co-parenting. And the behaviors of this individual gets more erratic, and there's a financial strain that goes along with this because at some point I'm going to need to go back into court and I'm going to need to fight for sole custody of my kiddo if he doesn't change, if he doesn't get better, if he continues down the line of behaviors and the pattern of emotional abuse that he's putting her under, and the insecurity and the lack of stability. And, you know, he could throw this back at me and say, well, you were unstable. You were homeless and living in a campground for a summer. Yes, but that wasn't due to my choices. I didn't make those bad choices. I was there because you set into motion actions that affected me. And I had to pick up the pieces. I had to fix what you broke. And yes, it might have been rushed. Yes, I might not have had all the pieces when I picked them up because some of the pieces were missing, of course, because of the damages. And I had to mold new pieces to fit in its place. But nonetheless, I didn't choose that. But now your behavior, you're choosing actions, you're choosing things. You're choosing this instability. And there's a huge difference in that. If it was circumstantial or if it was something that happened to you versus you choosing this to happen, then yeah, maybe grace, mercy could be given. But not in this circumstance. You're making bad choices. You're making bad decisions, and those are affecting our child. And so, you know, the real issue is considering what actions I now must take as a result of that. The damage is, I don't know that I'll ever be able to trust somebody completely. When somebody says, can I take your picture? Or they want to videograph me, they want to take a video of me. Even him, he's tried videotaping me. He's called, when we used to exchange at the gas station, our child on camera, he decided that instead of the police, he was going to stop calling the police because he didn't like what they had to say. And he was going to hire a private investigator, not only to follow my child and I back to where we were staying, even though it was protected, even though he had no business doing so, even though this individual was driving erratically behind us and trying to corner us and taking pictures, and I mean, it was really creepy. And then having these people dressed in uniforms with weapons and a squad car with a bar light at the top. But the squad car, of course, was painted a different color. That he's using these things to promote himself as a victim. And they didn't know there was an order for protection. And when I cited the order for protection and asked the security officer to have him stop videotaping me, have him stop recording me due to his inability to keep things off the internet and not distort them, they both laughed. They both laughed at me. So not only did he use an authority figure to be present to intimidate me, to gaslight and flip the script, as you will, to make him the victim, he then involved them in harassing and abusing me and tormenting me. I am terrified that a car sitting outside on the street might be somebody discovering where I live. I have Safe at Home, which is a national program for victims of domestic violence, to protect their address so that everything will get sent to the Department of Justice, and only the Department of Justice will know the true address and identity of the program participants, and all of your mail will go there. Department of Justice and the federal government nationally has stated that you can use this for voting, you can use it on your driver's license, you can use it for all legal documentation. Everyone must accept this address as your address. They cannot demand anything else. This is a protective arrangement with the government. And I do have this protection. And what a disaster it would be for me. I would feel entirely unsafe. I already feel unsafe and uneasy, but I'd feel entirely unsafe if suddenly he knew where I lived, or suddenly him or one of his agents would be sitting down the street or across the street or in front of my house or serving me with some documents at my house. That would be terrifying. I'd feel very unsettled. Like I'd want to escape and leave and get away somewhere. This person was physically abusive to me in person. And I thought by leaving, instead of calling the police and engaging in something, in a cycle that I did with my son's father, I decided to handle it different. I left. And I thought by leaving, okay, well, I'm taking his power. He can't hurt me anymore. I was wrong. All the ways he's hurt me now. I don't know that I'll ever fully recover from the damage, the pain, the emotional disturbance of what's happened. I'm traumatized by it. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not have PTSD currently. I do have trauma symptoms, but I don't have enough of the categorical symptoms to qualify me as having an active PTSD episode. But I definitely have trauma, and I definitely have anxiety surrounding this whole thing. What I do have is a stress disorder because of all the cancer and the court and, having to deal with him long term and being concerned about my daughter. So I go to therapy. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, psychology is my field of study, and I honestly believe that every psychologist should have a psychologist who should have a psychologist who should also have a psychologist. And that everybody could benefit from therapy. I think everybody could benefit from getting to know themselves better and having that objective third party just listening, helping them figure stuff out, even if there's no diagnosable condition or disorder. You don't have to have disorder or condition. I don't. I have a diagnosis for billing purposes, but I don't have a condition. I'm perfectly sane, I guess. Anyway, that's a 60 seconds. We have 1 minute left. Thank you for joining me. Part 3 will be rebirth, how I grew and broke the mold, grew from this, rose from the ashes like a phoenix, and it got to where I am today. And I love you all. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.
You're listening to another Perspective Talk Show.
Shadow, radio.
This show is brought to you by Rebirth Radio.